players that have played all three events, and there is only 7 players that have made each and every cut there. So we've got Bryson, Hovland, Lucas Glover, Doc Redman, super chalk this week, Tyler Duncan, Mark Hubbard, and Brian Stewart. Is this something you're looking at in your models? Something, maybe instead of like the last 24, last 50 rounds, are you looking at maybe more of a concentrated, smaller sample size of when they came back, like the Charles Schwab, RBC, and Travelers?
Yeah, I have I didn't go in depth enough, I guess, to make sure that it's those 3 events particularly, but I do have the last 12 rounds, so that should be picking that up. And I've almost had that in no weight when we first started, and I've kind of added it up a little bit higher in my model each week. So like you said, it is good to see if I can ride that again this week. Guys like Doc Redman, you just mentioned.
Yeah.
We'll get there, I guess, but I like him. So
yep. Yeah, for cash,
chalk or not.
Yeah, definitely jumping in. We'll start with cash games. Like way I'm looking at it this week, there's definitely 2 builds. You can go stars and scrubs, which does make a lot of sense to me this week. And I'm usually a guy that's pretty balanced in terms of cash games. But when you've got 2 guys that are, in my opinion at least, clear 1 and 2 in this field, and then kind of, I would say maybe a little bit separated, just due to current form. And I know there's someone that you like a little bit more that I'm not going to mention. I think Bryson or Webb, you can go that way because there is some low-end guys that I think that can, push their way through the cut and allow you to go stars and scrubs. But personally, I am still going back to a balanced build, and I'm looking at guys like Doc Redman, you mentioned him. The irons have been absolutely elite. He's maybe been, putting average, maybe a little bit below average. So if he puts together a good, 3-4 rounds of putting, I think he's even got the upside, again, to put together a top 10, top 20, and pay off that $8,500 price tag. Victor Hovland's another one. I think that's who I'm going to start my cash lineups with right now. That's kind of who I got locked in there. Elite irons. Since the return of golf as well, he's been awesome. He's got a T23 at the Charles Schwab. He returned 8.9 value there, so not great, not bad. He was rated 7,900. He was 7,600, dropped a bit at the RBC, put up 102 points with a T21, and then last week he put up 100 DK points with a T11. He was 7,800, so 12.8 points per dollar, so that's awesome. That's where I'm starting my cash lineups. If you're building your cash this week, whereabouts are you starting?
I'm starting right there with you, Victor Hovland. He's going to be – it's the decision for me in my main lineup this week, and that'll be a single entry GPP, not cash, but fairly similar type build, is going to be either do I go up to Bryson or do I start it at Hovland? I think as of right now I'm leaning toward Hovland. There's just so many things that are pointing toward him for me, getting that $1,700 discount. First of all, he, like you said, he's been on fire since the return. I think he can keep that going with the way he's playing. It's been his irons and things like that. I think he can definitely ride that more and more if he keeps playing. One thing I'm looking at this week with course history, we don't have but 1 year. But I did throw in some Donald Ross, the course designer, threw in some history there. Small portion of my model and things, but I am looking at that, and he was 4th at the Wyndham Championship last fall, which is also a Donald Ross design. So I think I'm leaning toward Hovland right there. Very similar to you this week in single entry GPPs. I don't really like anybody else other than one guy in that 9K range. If I'm built, because I'm only building 1 to 3 lineups this week.
Okay.
And I'm not looking at anybody else in that range right now other than Kevin Na. I don't know if he's going to make my lineup or not. I played around with some builds earlier that he fell in right there in a build with Hovland. I was able to get up to him. He was 5th last week. He's been good at Donald Ross courses at Wyndham and things like that. Mm-hmm. Man, he did scare me a little bit yesterday posting, hopefully his back holds up on Instagram. I saw. That's never comforting to see, I guess.
Never.
But he played pretty good last week. He's a guy that his putter can get hot and he can definitely go low. So that's where my thoughts are on him. Um, right now, I'm leaning toward playing, but that could change.
Yep. And then I'm kind of with you there in terms of like cash games, and my core is definitely going to be Hovland. And I'm dropping all the way down into that mid 8K range. Like I said, we talked about Redmond, how good he's been. Lucas Glover. You may not know, he's just been super consistent, and I'm just going to ride that awesome ball striking that he's had. Going through these 3 events, he has gained, last at the Travelers last week, gained 7.3 strokes on approach, gained 3 strokes at the RBC Heritage, and 5.2 strokes at the Charles Schwab. And in the last 2 events, he's gained over a stroke, right around that stroke and a half putting, which is kind of unlike him. So him with his elite ball striking, he's getting top 25 after top 25, combined with a weaker field, and the fact that his putter's running a little bit hot right now, I definitely like him. Christian Bezuidenhout, I never get to say that right, but his irons have been awesome. He's, like, again, we talked about this before, limited sample size on the PGA Tour, but he's made 4 or 5 cuts this season, and all 4 of those cuts made were top 30 finishes in fields like the HSBC, or the WGC Mexico, so both elite fields there. The Arnold Palmer had an elite field, and then the RBC Heritage, the Return to Golf, had some pretty damn good fields there too. So I don't like him, or I don't mind him for his price at all. I don't think I'll go there for cash. He's going to be... You can. He's definitely on my radar in all formats, but I think I'm going to go Glover, Redmond, and then Bezuidenhout in that range would be my third guy, and then Adam Hadwin grouped in there too. He hasn't really shown a ton of upside. It's like T40s, T45s, T37s. I haven't really seen the upside there, so he's kind of like a cash-only play for me. And then the other guy I'm dropping down to in a mid-range build is going to be Harold Varner.
Canada Day.
It is. Yep. Go for it. Yeah. Yeah, man. Varner has just been super consistent with his irons as well, so I'm just going to ride that train and go with him there as well. So, who's your kind of mid-range core in the 7 to 8K range?
Yeah, this is my favorite range of the week, from 8,500 down to Varner at 76. There's loads of value and good plays, I think, in here, and that's one of the reasons, so I can jam a lot of those in, that I'm leaning toward not going up to Bryson. First, Doc Redmond, I want to touch on him again. At the first of the week when I was writing my article, I was thinking, how are people going to click 8,500? Now I'm seeing him projected everywhere to be up there pretty high owned. I think it depends on the type of contest that you're in. I think once you go higher in stakes and more single entry, I don't know that he'll be as high owned as maybe if people are using optimizers or something. That's just my personal opinion. At 8,500, it's hard to click that button, or for most people. But I love his form, and obviously this was his breakthrough last year. Getting him kind of doing what Will Gordon did last week.
Yeah.
Nice call, by the way. I saw that in your
I just
article.
needed more exposure. The rest of my life for shit.
Right. I'm with you on Bezuidenhout, or however we're going to pronounce that one. I like his form. Eric Van Rooyen is his countryman, I guess. He's always a nice ball striker. 8,000. I think he can play well this week. And then probably my favorite group of the week is that upper 7K range. Snedeker, he was a bet for me. He was 5th here last year. He's a guy who has been gaining it with the putter, and he was awful with his irons last week.
Yeah.
Maybe he's a guy that can turn that around, and if he's halfway decent, then maybe he can drain some putts and kind of almost what he did at Wyndham, kind of a comp course there too. What he did at Wyndham, I think he did shoot 79 or 59 and won there. Year or two ago. So I think that's a potential this week. I'm not sure what his ownership's looking like. Alex Noren, 7,800. He's kind of coming a little bit back into form. He's a guy who I played a lot here a couple years ago. This will be his debut here, 21st last time out. He's one of those that pops in par 5 scoring. He's not really the longest player, but that just tells me he's able to position himself well and make it easy birdie putts where he's just having tap-ins and things like that. And then, like you said, Varner, I was lucky to be able to snag him early Monday at 100-1 to win. I think he's way down now,
Yeah.
around 60 or so. He's going to be massive chalk, but 7,600, he's almost like the Hovland for me from last week.
Yep.
Too cheap.
Just a good price.
He should be in that lower 8K range, I think. And he's just been hitting it so well with his iron. So I think that's another core play for me for sure.
Yeah, he's finished T19 at Charles Schwab. He missed the cut at the RBC, bounced back with a T32 last week. And what I'm finding with him is he's returning value. He's 7,100 and 6,900 in those two cuts that he made, and he returned 12 and 12.3x value, which is like anything over 10. Like you're looking at double-digit value from anyone in the field is awesome. From your high-end guys, you're kind of maybe looking like 8 to 9 you can deal with from those guys. Like Bryson last week was 11,000. He put up 102 points. That's 9.3. I'll take that from the upper tier guys. When you start getting 10 plus from those guys in the 6,000, 7,000, high 7,000 range, that is excellent value. I agree with you. He should probably be, I don't know, 8,500 somewhere in there this week. So I'm what is he at here? I just went over him. 76, yeah. So I think he's about 1,000 too cheap for this field. So definitely like him. Go back to some Will Gordon. Will Gordon, Tyler Duncan were my top two values last week. Gordon kind of surpassed Duncan in price, so I'm leaning a little bit more Duncan. He's 300 cheaper on DraftKings, and then on FanDuel, it's about the same. He's 8,700, so about $400 difference there. Duncan's had some awesome ball striking going on here throughout this whole thing. He was one of those guys that I mentioned that's made all three cuts since the return, and he's put up at least 11.3 or 11.8x value in each of those tournaments, and those are only T38s, T28s, and T32. So he's scoring really good for his price tag. He's up into that 7K range now. He's out of that 6, so maybe looking at like 10x value from him this week. I'm definitely on board with him. And then, some pivots, now that we've talked about a few of those, in that lower range, I definitely like Peter Uihlein. He's kind of stood out to me. Had a good finish. I think he missed the cut here last year, but I like his upside, his birdie potential, and he's, I think, 23rd in my model on the sheet. Who are some of the guys down in this range outside of, did we mention Duncan? No, we kind of went Varner was our last. So below Varner in that low 7, high 6K range, who are you looking at down there?
Yeah, I'm with you with Tyler Duncan, and then I'm kind of in the dark in this low 7K range. I don't think I'm going to land here very much in my builds with trying to jam in 7 and 8K guys with one of the top guys. So then I'm going to end up being in that upper to mid 6K range, and I think there is some value down there. If I had to pick anybody, Brian Stewart, 7,400 was fifth here a year ago, played well last week. Not sure what his ownership's looking like. Have you seen that? At the first of the week, I would have thought he was going to be fairly high, but
that was Stewart. Just going to check that out here. So
yeah,
usually
I think he's looking around sub 10%.
Just getting fan share to load here. Got so many damn tabs open. Everything takes forever to open. I know I looked at him yesterday. I'm sure it was like, I want to say like 9, 10, right around there. And I bet you it probably hasn't changed. There we go. We've got it loaded here now. Yeah, he's up there. He's top 15 in tags right now. So looking at about 11% somewhere in there.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see any. If you fall in that range, I don't see any reason to fade, I guess, a 10% guy, unless you're just complete massive chalk everywhere else. But
yeah,
10's low enough that I think he's a pretty good play, and he'd be my favorite in that low 7K range. Once you drop down into the 6K range, there's a lot of flyers that are interesting. I think I am going to end up down here on my main lineup, which is always scary, and it half burned me last week. I was able to still cash in the single entry, but I had Sepp Straka. Did not make the cut.
No, bad call by me.
He's sitting down there at 6,700, tempting me again because then I see he's 11th here a year ago. He's been good overall on Donald Ross courses. man, I don't think I'm going to make it back to him if I'm just playing a couple lineups. But it's interesting. That's a few or finish probably top 30, top 25 for you. Another guy, probably my favorite once you cross into the 6K range is Lanto.
Yes.
6,800. He's a guy we rode early in the year a lot. 24th last time out. I think he kind of started very cold after the layoff. It looked like it killed him, and now maybe he's popping back. Another guy down here, Wesley Bryan, 6,500. If you look back at his history, when he was playing well in 2017, he would have these weird weeks where he would gain abnormal amounts of approach. But I think he's fine. If he was in that 4-man group today that they were playing with Varner and Day and Bubba. Not that means anything, but he was out there, just seemed pretty chill about everything. So I think he's viable. I don't think he'll be very chalky. I don't think anybody down here will be. So I think you need to just play the guy that you have some conviction in or is popping a little bit for you. And like I say, a lot of the times, you're never going to find somebody that checks every box down here.
Never. One guy I would even consider in cash games, if you're going that stars and scrubs way this week, is Sean Stefani. He hasn't played, what are we here? I don't think he has played since February or January, something like that. February. But he's not going to be a guy I want to use in GPPs. He'll make the cut very consistently, but he's not putting up a lot of high-end finishes. He's not really consistent in any one statistical area. He's just a guy I'm looking to make the cut, maybe get a T50, T60, or top 50, top 60 somewhere in there. It allows me to go and get and put Hovland with Bryson DeChambeau, and especially over on FanDuel you can go that way, and you can actually go 3 stars and maybe 1 scrub and then 1 mid-range guy. It actually works out really well on FanDuel this week. So I guess I'm kind of splitting my strategies for cash a little bit. I'm going a little more stars and scrubs on FanDuel, but on DraftKings, it's definitely going to be balanced. But he is a guy that I would consider in cash, even as a like a GPP punt, just getting through the cut, make a few birdies over the 4 rounds. As long as your top 4 guys, top 5 guys, your other core guys are going off, I think that makes sense. We had a question here. Well, I want to know your thoughts. We're going to jump back up to the top tier. We talked about some cash, so kind of some guys that we're targeting as all format type guys. For GPP, the first question was Bubba Watson. Your thoughts on him, and then I want to ask you about Hideki Matsuyama. So I'll let you go on Bubba first, and then just kind of roll that into Hideki and what you think there.
Yeah, I'm personally off Bubba. Like what I saw in the model, and he looked awful a couple weeks ago when he came out. But you can almost chalk that up like we did Webb, I guess, to being the first tournament back if you want. It's personally not for me on a course that I think you're going to have to make a ton of putts to compete. And at 10-2, I just like Hovland a whole lot more.
Yeah, I agree. In terms of Bubba, one thing that does stand out to me is his par 4 scoring. Since the return of golf, he's first in this field in par 4 scoring, 21st in strokes gained approach, which is all right, 16th in DK scoring, which I liked. Par 5s he's struggled on. Not too concerned just because I think everyone's going to score on the par 5s this week. And he's 34th in birdie or better gained in the field, but 19th in opportunities gained. So he's getting the opportunities, not sinking the putts. So I think he's a player that I think can get a hot putter. And just kind of seeing him swing the club today, he's not wild by any means, but this is a course where it looked like he's really going to let the driver go. And as long as he can get his irons on, give himself some opportunities, anyone can get a hot putter. And if he's going to be low owned, I'm just going to sort here by price, I would think that he's going to be one of the lower owned guys in that range. Like Bryson and Webb, I would think that they should take some ownership. Doc's going to be pretty high owned. Lowest owned in that top tier right now. Hideki's looks like he's going to be a nice little pivot. The guy who's going to be the lowest owned, I have 0 of. Bubba, by the way, is looking about 8 to 10%, so I like that as a GPP pivot. Ricky Fowler, I wanted to ask you about him as well. I don't understand the price. Since he's kind of changed swing coaches, he came out and had a good start when he first changed his swing coach. That was back at the American Express, I believe it was. He came out and put a T11, maybe even a T10, I think, in that tournament. Yeah, T10 at the American Express back at the end of January. And then he's missed 4 cuts in his last 6 with a T18 is his best finish at the Arnold Palmer. The price feels way too high. I put a bet on him for first round going Finau over him. Finau has shot 68, 66, 68 in his first rounds since beginning to break. Fowler's gone 73, 67. So Finau's beat him twice in the tournaments that they played together in the first round. I just like Finau more, and I just can't believe that Fowler is more expensive than Finau and has a better number in terms of betting. Your thoughts there?
Yeah, where I'm at with that, I mean, when I first opened the odds this week and saw Fowler in the 30s in this field, I was like, it kind of makes me want to jump on him. But the more I look at it, I'm kind of with you. He's not been good. I need to see a flash of something. It almost reminded me of DJ being around the 30 when I first seen the odds, but we've not seen the progression of the form like we did. I think I'm going to be able to play Fowler this week, and I like that bet Finau. This should be a place that he can score if he can start rolling in a couple putts as well. One more thing on Bubba. He was 7th his first week back, but he gained 4 strokes putting, which has since went away. He's not been playing overall bad, but he's not been playing very good either. So he's kind of a meh play to me. So that I can't get there in a couple lineups.
Yeah, if I'm doing 20 lineups this week, like 20 max, Bubba's like a guy I'll have in 2. Maybe even just 1, but I just feel at his ownership I want to grab. What I'll try and do every week is I'll get a core of, in 20 max, if I'm playing the 20 max, I'll get a core of, say, 6 players that I'm going to have throughout, say, 70 to 80%. Not all 6, but I'm going to have 70 to 80%, at least 2 or 3 of those guys in every single one of those, 18 out of 20 lineups. And then those other 2, I really like to just go off the wall and go contrarian and pivot off maybe some of those high-owned guys like Matsuyama and Fowler are going to be a guy. Maybe I'll just split them in the lineups and go, instead of Hovland, I'll just go down and go one of those in my final 2 lineups. That's kind of the way I look at those GPP flyers, just to kind of have a chance in case we get these wacky weeks, which we've seen a lot. The variance right now is a little bit higher than we've seen in the past just because of all the different variables that are out there right now with the COVID break, players not ever, having a length of time that they've been off this long before. So definitely looking at a few plays there. Is there anyone else that you're pivoting to for GPPs that you like that we maybe didn't mention? Kind of went over both of our cores here pretty good so far.
Yeah. Just trying to scan maybe a Maverick McNeely.
Yes.
I don't think we mentioned him.
We haven't.
7,600. He could be a pivot off of Varner. Not a pivot off of him for me. I would be playing both of them in a lineup if I did play McNeely.
What about Scott Stallings?
Scanning that range.
I'm just looking at Scott Stallings right now. He's been solid since the return here. He has gone T48, so not great at the RBC, but he gained strokes everywhere except for putting. He lost a half stroke and -2 on the off the tee. Turned that around at the Travelers and gained 6.9 strokes tee to green, 4.7 on approach, 2.4 putting. So he gained strokes everywhere on the strokes gain stuff. Finished with the T6, and his price is still... where are we sitting with him right now? I think he's actually 7,500. So it's popped up out of that 6K range, but I think as a GPP pivot off of Varner again, I think he makes a lot of sense there as well. He's just been striking it solid. So that's another guy I would guess I would consider.
One more guy. I played him last week. In my 20 max build. Matthew Wolff.
Yes.
I don't know. He's starting to turn to one of those guys for me that he's either going to just either miss the cut or barely make the cut and play awful on the weekend, or he's going to finish top 10.
Yeah.
We've not seen a whole lot of in between from him. Even last year, I mean, when he turned pro, he went 80th, miscut, win at the
Yeah.
3M. So I, I don't know. He's going to get his form back soon. Maybe this is a place he can hit driver off the tee, have a little bit wider fairways that he can hit, and it's a birdie fest like he did win last year at the 3M. He's a flyer who I might throw in 1 to 2 lineups in a 20 max.
No, that makes a lot of sense. That's another
like I did last week.
flyer type guy for sure. Yeah, so that pretty much covers all our players.
What about Rory Sabatini?
Oh, you know what? That's a player I did want to mention. He's been hitting it actually pretty solid. He did make it into my core today. I'm looking at my short-term model since the return. He hits in everything but par 5. So he's 4th in putting. He's 15th in DK points, 5th in par 4, 15th in birdie or better percentage, and 29th in strokes gained approach since the return. He's 13th in that model, in that short-term model on the sheet. Did he play here last year? Yeah, he was T3. Yeah, he had a really good event here last year, coming in with form. I'm going to be caught on the Sabatini train.
Courses too.
Yeah, that's right. I remember he stood out there. He looks like he's going to be chalk in that range. He's top 10 in tags right now. So, like, in that 88, in that sub 9K range, he's definitely going to be there in terms of ownership. Looks like probably around, 12 to 15%, something like that. I don't really want to, but I might fit Jason Day in one lineup as a pivot. Yeah, I think eventually he's going to come around in his form, and he's a guy that maybe kind of like Fowler, I want to be there before everyone else gets there, because once they have a good event, those are guys that are going to get some ownership on them each and every week. It just seems like he's too cheap for the level of talent. That's really the only thing. I know he's not playing good. I know he's going to be 5% owned is kind of the only reason with Doc Redman, Lucas Glover, and Rory Sabatini. So that's a really good range, I think, where you can make some pivots. So it kind of makes me, from a GPP standpoint, really like Bezuidenhout a lot, because he, out of all those guys, looks like he's going to be half the ownership of all those guys. And of the guys that we can pivot off of from those chalky guys, I think he's the best player of that group.
Yeah, I like him too. And we talked about that early in the week a little bit.
Yeah.
One thing I will say back to Sabatini, Donald Ross history. If you on Fantasy National, he ranks 3rd on average for strokes gained total per round, and that's behind Nate Lashley, who only has 4 rounds on the Donald Ross courses, and that was a win here. So very small sample size. Hovland has 2 events here last year and the Wyndham last year, only 8 rounds. And then Sabatini tied 3rd, 26 rounds, has averaged gaining 1.6 strokes per round. So he's right up there with Webb and Day as well as top on Donald Ross history. And the last thing I want to touch on is kind of talked about it in the article a little bit. Clicking some of the names on these guys might be hard, like a Sabatini when you have Jason Day or up to Bubba, Kevin Na, Finau, all them, and it's just name recognition. But when you have a field like this, you've got to be able to put that aside and almost forget about it. Like Doc Redman, first of the week, it's like, I hope people can't click 8,500 Doc Redman. The way he's been playing, I'll take my chances and let people fade him just because they think he's too high priced. That's kind of where I'm at, and the last thing I want to touch on. And then you have some of these guys that have the name recognition, like Snedeker in under 8K, Noren, even some of those guys. Maybe they get higher ownership just because their name. So it's kind of a give and take, but you've got to be able to take some stands and use some pivots that you're not necessarily comfortable just clicking them.
Yeah, 100%. I'm definitely concentrating on, like I said, it kind of in the opening, Balanced build for sure, but even if you're going stars and scrubs, looking at my core is definitely made up of guys that are ball striking it well since the return, or at least trended. Some of the guys with a missed cut or maybe like a T60 or something like that, but they've trended week after week, or maybe just need a hot putter for the weekend, because those guys are generally going to make the cut at least because of their ball striking, and the upside's there as long as they make the cut. So that's kind of what I'm concentrating a lot on this week. And then, like I said, in my model, I've just cranked up birdie or better percentage, par 4 scoring, and approach as like 70% of my model just on those three, or 80% actually, just because it's going to need a low score this week. So again, weather's nice. We're going to see some birdies. It's going to be fun to watch. I can't wait for tomorrow morning. One of the last things I want to ask you is what your one and done is this week. I've locked in Bryson right now because I think he's going to win. The form's been there. He's finally got, the elite players in the world aren't there. The Rorys and stuff like that. The DJs ahead of him kind of in those world golf rankings. I think this is a week he really wants to take advantage, and I think he's going out there with the mindset that he's going to win this. Everyone should, but
right. Some just can't do it like he can. If he puts if he's there all week, he's gonna win this tournament.
Yeah.
That's that simple. And like I've said, in one and done, I'm trying to catch up a little bit, and it's not been working out, so I'm slowly falling farther behind. First of the week, I was thinking Kevin Na. I'll probably still go there. I think there's going to be some heavy chalk depending on if people are going to play the top names in the tournament, like Bryson or Webb or somebody, or if they decide they want to save them because it's not a major tournament or something. They're going to go down to guys like Varner. You're going to get kind of two different chalk. So I'm going to go somewhere in the middle with Kevin Na.
Right on. I definitely like that.
In other words, fade him because I've not been good at one and done.
Well, you did better than me last week. You at least picked someone. I completely forgot. Woke up in the morning, realized the tournament started because of my time zone difference, and just
right.
so I've gone 3 of the last 4 events with $0. So my lead on you, I guess, but I was sitting top 100 there for a while in that contest. I am not top 100 anymore. So
you
let's
can just
get back
not
on
pick
board.
Anybody for the rest of the year, and I still don't know if I'll catch you. So.
Well, I hope I can get closer up because the prize purse is definitely looking pretty good. So right on. Well, thanks for joining me. Let's go make some lineups. RotoPros members, we're going to have our skeletons posted tonight. Going to have both the full tournament as well as showdown in there, possibly some showdown thoughts. I've got the showdown sheet up as well. That model is a little different from the full tourney, so make sure to go check that out as well. I've got first round leader odds factored in, as well as some first round score and stuff like that. So jump into chat. We're in there tonight. I won't be there in the morning before chat. I'm not sure what time Dane's up. I know he's 2 hours ahead of me, so that's good there. But definitely hit us up tonight. We'll be in chat. Thanks, everyone. Let's go get some green.